Welcome to another edition of Head On Shaw TV. I'm your host, Ian Holmes, examining the issues that really matter here on Mid-Vancouver Island and a whole laundry list of issues, especially in the Nanaimo area, to delve into today. Nanaimo Daily News city reporter, very fine reporter I might add, Spencer Anderson, is in studio to dig into some of these issues. An incinerator proposal for Duke Point. We're going to talk a little bit about the passenger-only ferry service between Nanaimo and downtown Vancouver, and also some big changes with the senior management team at Nanaimo City Hall. Thanks so much for coming on, Spencer. It's going to be exciting 15 minutes.
Thanks for having me.
This big issue at the most recent council meeting with the incinerator situation, George Anderson bringing forth this motion, trying to shoot this idea down. We don't want this in our backyard, but that's been set on the back burner. Other councillors, hey, we want to hear a little bit more information on this situation. So we'll fire up the clip right now. We'll hear what George Anderson has to say, followed by also Councillor Bill McKay on their take on this situation with a possible incinerator at Duke Point.
For me, we waited until November 15th. We found out we're on the short list, and I feel that we need to make a decision before it's too late for us to make a decision. This is a decision that's a principled decision in that why should we be taking someone else's garbage into our community to deal with?
They told us when we met directly with them, we are not going to a community that doesn't want us. But I don't want to be one of 9 people that makes the decision. I want 86,000 people to make the decision, or a percentage of the number of people that are voting. I want this to go to referendum next year on election day, when the community's had plenty of time to digest all of the information. That's all I've got, Your Worship.
That's Councillor McKay. Anderson before that. Metro Vancouver looking to burn about 700,000 tons of waste a year, and they've shortlisted down to 4 sites, and Nanaimo is a potential site for a waste-to-energy facility. Spencer Anderson, this is, wow, what a meeting that was Monday night. You've had a couple days now to sort of digest everything that went down. It took up a lot of time as everyone had various views on the situation. What do you read into council's stance on this this very precarious issue before City Council?
I think I see a council on one part that has a very strong opinion against this project. On the other part, I see a council that has members that are open to the idea of a project if it's a good deal for the city, and then I see people on council who are sort of in between, who have a lot of angst about a potential project like this, but who don't quite feel comfortable shutting the door yet.
And it seems to be the sentiment of most of council. Let's hear the information to come forth. Wheelabrator, the main proponent, along with Urbaser, that this European firm that would come together to make this happen, they haven't really come to town to let people know a little bit about what this is all about, and that's what Councillor McKay alluded to. There's not a lot of information, it seems, out there about what exactly is waste to energy, and that seems to be an issue. More information seems to needs to come forward here.
Well, the proponents have they came to our paper and did an interview with us, and they have been to council once to sort of explain what they want to do. But I think the point that was raised repeatedly by some Monday night was the fact that there hasn't been that much interaction between the proponents and the public yet. Yeah, and that was one theme that's sort of been raised repeatedly. One councillor, for example, Fred Pache, raised that point. You know, he said it's essential that we get some engagement with the proponent on this. That seems to be what Bill McKay is calling for too. You know, he's stated publicly a few times now that he's willing to see this go to a referendum. In fact, it may be a good option to take it to referendum after people have had a chance to see what it's about, weigh the pros and cons, and then put forward a decision. But there's already seems to be quite a lot of opposition to it right now. Yeah,
and from a proponent perspective, maybe dropped the ball a little bit, kind of got behind the game a little bit, it seems, Spencer, to get their information out there on this technology that exists, because there's not like that community engagement just hasn't happened yet, and people don't know a lot, it seems, about this technology right now.
Well, one of the things that was said at council is you know, Metro is going through this process right now. It's this multi-phase process that's going to go on over the next couple of years before they select a site and a technology. I mean, that's another part that hasn't happened yet. They put out a request and got a number of sites from proponents. They've also got a number of submissions from other landowners that would be open to, theoretically, to any proponent. It's proposing a technology, but they got to go through all this other stuff first. And the point that I heard raised a couple of times at the council meeting was that we may not even be at the stage yet where the proponents, all of them, all 9 or throughout the province, are allowed to come forward and start making this pitch. So some people are saying it's too early yet for that to happen.
Well, it leaves a lot of time for groups to come together and maybe either in support or against it. The Regional District Board has already voted that they're opposed to this coming to the Dew Point area, and I guess at some point there will be, Nanaimo City Council will be looked upon to take a stance at some point in the months ahead, you would think, Spencer, to follow up on George Anderson's motion on whether we to allow this in the Dew Point area.
George Anderson's point seems to be, look, we've known about this project for some time now, several months. We've heard some information about it. We generally know what the project is. We generally know why it will be built. We have enough information right now to take a stand and say, you know, no, we don't need to be accepting another region's garbage. That's Anderson's point. You know, and as I said before, others are saying, well, no, hang on a minute here. I think the fear from a lot of the people in the public gallery that night was, if you don't say no early, it opens up the door and it's harder to say no later. I think it's the fear among some people in the audience that night and maybe in the community. Although, of course, that's a matter of opinion and I guess remains to be seen. But there does seem to be, you're right, there does seem to be that sense from some people, including Councillor Anderson, that now's the time to say no to it.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how much the sentiment locally in Nanaimo about this social angle of Vancouver, handle your own trash, we don't want it, don't barge it this way. I wonder if that will carry any weight amongst just the general electorate for the people to say that this is, to take a stance that this is something we don't want. That'll be kind of interesting to see where that goes. I kind of think that sort of carries some weight. I think there's an environmental angle, but I think just the premise of accepting this massive amounts of Vancouver garbage from the Lower Mainland to burn this year, I think that has some weight for people here locally, not just based on that. And George Anderson alluded to that, to not have that here. That's just my opinion, but we'll see kind of where the argument goes and what side of the debate people take. But
yeah, well, it remains to be seen, I guess. But we're not going to be talking about this for a while anyway, because they tabled Councillor Anderson's motion for a little while. We're not exactly sure. There's no firm date attached to that, but yeah, no, it'll come up, and we'll see what happens then.
Interesting discussion. Passenger-only ferry between Nanaimo and downtown Vancouver. This is obviously a very interesting story. You've had several stories in the Daily News about this, Spencer. Last funding piece needs to come together for this, for the Island Ferry Services. Several $1 million is really all they're going to divulge. They've come so far in the process to get the $63 million, and they just need one last piece. It seems like they're kind of zeroing in, Spencer. What do you have any read in terms of how soon the last final funding piece can come together to make this set sail, possibly even this spring or summer, between downtown Nanaimo and Vancouver? Well, that's the hope.
Yeah, the proponents have stated that they want to start in 2014. They want to start service in 2014. And the last they said publicly on this was at a council meeting a few weeks ago, and I believe they said that they hadn't made not much was new in terms of if they were closer to getting that funding or not. And a few weeks ago, the company's spokesperson, David Marshall, said, well, look, we couldn't really go any further. We're at the point now where we had to take it to council, and we couldn't make any more progress on funding until we took it to council, and and vice versa. So this was the time to do it. But yeah, no, it's sort of unclear where they're at. They're keeping their cards close to their chest for now, but yeah, no, their stated goal is to get going by 2014, and they seem serious about it.
To me, they've taken somewhat of a risky approach here. They've spent $10 $10 million so far. They put down payments on these boats, so that's a lot of money that they've spent to get to this point where where they don't have all their capital together. So they've come so far in the road. It just may be a matter of time until they solidify the last funding piece. But I mean, to me, this looks like this is going ahead. It just seems to be, at least from the outside looking in, a matter of time until the last bit of money comes in, and then they can make this happen. But that's they put up a lot. They've had a lot of skin in the game and investment to make this happen. It would seem that will try to will this through somehow from their perspective.
Oh yeah, my sense is that they're very serious about it for sure.
Yeah, spend about several years working towards this, so that's in all likelihood will happen. What's kind of the reaction you've gotten at the paper from people in Nanaimo about this service? Overwhelmingly positive. We've gotten from the radio station that I work at, a lot of people very excited about the idea about this happening. Spencer, is that kind of
people seem generally favorable towards this, I have to say. So, I mean, I haven't seen any real opposition to the project, mainly because it's a private sector proposal. Right. One thing I heard at the town hall the other day, where there's a few residents out there, I think, who are they like the idea, but they're just concerned that you know, the taxpayers will end up subsidizing it somehow. And the proponents were there at that meeting. They said, well, no, that's not really the case. We're not going to be asking for people's tax dollars to operate. You know, what they are asking for is part of this deal, the city would get a revenue stream from the project. They get a certain amount, I think it's 25 cents or something per passenger. They get revenue from the lease. They get revenue from parking, 50% of revenue from parking, I think. And for the first few years, the proponent's asking for a bit of relief from that revenue. And I think that's capped to $125,000 per quarter for the first 5 years to help the business get up on the ground. Yeah. So I think the sense is that people don't want to see the city worse off for the deal, but other than that, they seem pretty supportive of it.
Yeah, and the City Hall seems like they definitely want to get this business partnership firmed up. So probably not a rule in that, and at least that's sort of what I gleaned from what Mayor Rutan's comments have been. But we'll see where that goes.
I think the mayor's publicly very much in favor of this. It's just. I think he said it's just a matter of seeing the steps taken and followed through. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it develops for sure. And yeah, they said 2014, and they secured the vessels and everything. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what progress they make in the next few months.
Big changes at Nanaimo City Hall under the leadership of City Manager Ted Swaby. He talked about a cultural shift, and he is making that happening with really trimming down the senior management team, 7 positions eliminated, looking to save $1 million a year in operational savings. It is a big change. Spencer, your reaction to this new shift that was instituted here by the new city manager?
Well, I asked. I should say myself and other reporters asked Ted Swaby about this. He was kind enough to have us over to his office and answer some questions. And yeah, this is like the biggest shuffle at the city bureaucratic level for a while. The last significant one was, I think Mr. Swaby said, under Al Kenning's tenure, but that was much smaller than this. Yeah, no, it's a definitely a streamlined organization is what they say they're going for here, and apparently, you know, I was told that apparently it's not that uncommon. A lot of municipalities are looking to do this. They're looking at core reviews and things like that. So it's an interesting development for sure.
Spencer Anderson, and I'm a Daily News City reporter, breaking down some interesting issues: incinerator proposal, fast ferry, and changes with the senior management team at Nanaimo City Hall. I'm Ian Holmes. We're out of time. It's another edition of Head On Shaw TV.